news where those were like hidden, and we were not really, because, but it was, we are so close yet so far. So it, those I think the border which was created by the land whereabouts were also, it's not only about the mark, the mark of the borders. It's also the way we want to talk about it. We create a border when we, like when we, I think when we think about or we put preconceived ideas into others to make others happy.
I mean, it's interesting because I mean, in many ways, the minute the word kind of borders comes up for, I think, the entire region that we're around, of course, you always have these conversations, I think, where people are like, but, you know, actually we're not very different at all. You know, I mean, whether it's India, Pakistan, or we talk about Bangladesh, or we talk about Burma, you know, and it's just this kind of, like you're saying, like a conditioning of how we even remember these histories. It's almost like marking out these selective points of time where there was a fraction, but like almost negating the other aspects of being human that actually have unified us and hold us as a collective even today, you know, in some ways. And so I think it's quite interesting that that you have ancestry, you know, that goes into Burma, and then you ends up meeting you in Bangladesh. You know, I mean, it kind of comes together really, really beautifully, and to know each other is also, over a period of time, creates a certain kind of, I guess, like a safe space, you know, between you guys, where you know that there's a conversation that both of you are willing to push from your ends, you know, whether it's, and because your book is kind of deals more with the idea of the personal, you know, as opposed to the geographical. And I think that's one more thing that I kind of wanted to talk about in the book. Of course, I don't expect the two of you to speak for all the 12 women in the collective, but I think one of the things that I really did appreciate about the collaborative was also that it's not about being identified on the basis of your nation. You know, it's not like, oh, it's Burmese photographers and Bangladeshi photographers, so you will see Burma and you will see Bangladesh. You're actually seeing, you're seeing people, you're seeing their thoughts, you're seeing what happens when you have a chat with a cab driver, you know, or what happens when you get a phone call and get to know a friend of yours is going through something that's heartbreakingly, you know, gives you anxiety in that sense, you know. And so in some ways, although it is about bridging the Naf and bridging this massive river that separates, you know, the two countries, it is also about content that I can connect with, whether I'm sitting in India or someone sitting in Australia or someone sitting in New York or anywhere else in the world, you know, because these are things that echo in our lives more than our geographies. And I think what I'm going to try and do, maybe, and I hope it will work, is that we're going to go old school on this. And what I'm going to do is we're going to try and look at the book like this. So I'm going to be one like teacher turning the pages, and you might end up, you can't see that I'm in shorts underneath. Okay, so we're going to do this, and we're going to try and see. This says headache for the inversion, but just to give you a sense of the kind of images that were made. And Sadia, this work was made over a period of, was it 10 days or 2 weeks when you were
we were there
edited together? Sorry.
Yeah, edited together, but we were there for 7 days, so we can only shoot for 5 days. So
there was a 5-day shoot, but and then you got into kind of the editing and the designing of the project. Sadia, do you want to talk about this image? Because I know a lot of the text, even if they can see, they might not be able to, but if you can just contextualize it for us, you don't need to necessarily read it out, but.
This is a scanned photograph from the Global New Light of Myanmar, the newspaper. It's a factory in, you just let me know if I pronounce it in a way. Guftgu Special Zone.
Special economics. Yeah.
Special
economics. Yeah.
So this is one area in Myanmar chosen to host one of the special economic zones in the coastal town, and coastal town, the restrictive area of Rakhine State, and yeah.
And I will then move to nothing is better than something. And you maybe you can take us through your thoughts when you made this work.
Actually, we got a topic. Nothing is better than something. When I have a conversation with Rupa on the first day, I think, when we talk about how our industry and how I'm upset with our industry in Myanmar, like photographic community, and so we came up that line, like nothing is better than something. And so when we discuss about collaboration between me and Rupa, we decided to work on the theme of the psychology. So recently, that time, one of my close relatives committed attempted suicide that time, and so I was quite it's a sudden and unexpected for me, and I also blaming myself why I didn't know this kind of incident. And so I for this series I try to meet the younger people who want to talk about their depression and their psychological problem, and just like I'm as a listener, and also I shoot them like as the way they want to see, and also like portraying their emotion from their text, from their diary into the images. And so it's kind of like collaborative works between me and those young people which I met during those days. But I was quite lucky because I knew them before. So it's although it's a short time of period, I could get access.
Thank you so much for that. And we have done it. We have presented this book. I think what I'm also interested in seeing, in talking about over here, is stuff that you actually talked about when you said something is better than nothing. And I think what's more important is that idea that you were talking about, that conversation about considering what's happening within photography here in Myanmar. You actually do feel that way. And maybe if you can kind of just give us a sense of what it's like to be a photographer who's not a photojournalist in Myanmar, or who's not doing products, or who's not doing who just actually wants to use the medium for their own understanding of themselves. I mean, it would be really nice to know about that.
Yeah, comparing, if we talk about the history of photography, comparing with Bangladesh, India, Myanmar started really late. And I think Myanmar photography in the back is more like the photograph of the monk, the studio photograph, and the photograph of the landscape, the bagan scene, this kind of thing. And I think photography scene started to develop when we have, it was in 2007 when we started like a saffron revolution between, so since that, after that time, photography community become developed, and because our country was being oppressed for decades, and so so we photography or photojournalism or photography as a career is very rare and very also risky career for us. And so we can say that our photography scene in Myanmar was really dominated by photojournalism, because I can also understand that because our country has been oppressed, and so people appreciate more like a news and photojournalism, like a and we tried Thuma Collective. Our collective also, one of the mission is to have this kind of gap, not only just photojournalism. We also have other storytelling, visual storytelling, like conceptual and fine arts and this kind of things we want to introduce to the audience, and also to create a platform. So we have a Yangon Photo Festival. We don't have big festival or like photographic art festival in Myanmar. We have a Yangon Photo Festival, but it's only focused on photojournalism. And so in Myanmar, when we talk about photography, people mostly appreciate it on issue-based journalistic reportage style. And so we want to have this, we want to narrow this gap. And so Thuma Collective, we're trying to have our own exhibition, and also publishing a book is also another form of like introducing to the different forms of photography to different audience and to different parts of the different parts of the country, because we have limited gallery that showcase photography. Most of the galleries are like more like art, more like sculpture, paintings. So for us, it's
traditional, right? Like even the sculpture and the painting format, there's kind of
Yep.
a more traditional acceptance.
More traditional, and also it's so difficult for us to showcase our work, and so we can also use photo book as a museum or as a gallery. We can travel around, and so this is also one of our activities, and we are trying step by step, but I think we are still trying, but I think we didn't get the majority interest on the conceptual photography and contemporary photography. We didn't have much support in photographic community in Myanmar yet.
I mean, it's interesting that you spoke about the book, because I know that as a collective, this is not your first book, right? Like you guys already did a book which was conversations between the members of the collective. And I mean, at this point, I just wanted to say that I think what I find really interesting is also how everyone in the collective, although, the medium that they're functioning within is photography, but they come from very, very different spaces. I mean, you're working within photojournalism, and then you kind of came, to experimenting where you are right now. But you've also got people who work as architects, you've got people who are interested in gender-based communities and LGBTQI rights, if I'm not wrong, and someone who's in the fashion industry, someone who's in the development sector. And I think what I wanted to also talk about here was like, it's quite interesting to see a mix of these thought processes come together, and I just wanted to know, in terms of like the dynamics of a collective, how does that work for you in terms of finding new spaces of experimenting within photography or even outside of it,
like you said, we have different, we have 5 members, including myself, and all of our 5 members are from different backgrounds. For example, Shui is from development background, and Jintapai is from the investigative journalism background, and Rita and Ken is from architecture background. And so we have we kind of like complete each other. For example, like when we apply for a grant or something like that, and Shui is expert in writing the grant or something like that, and also for research, Tin is also really good at researching, because that's our expertise. And so it's like we kind of like compete each other, not just So we, in a collective, we don't have like a position who is not in the hierarchy position, because we believe that we have each other, we have quality, different qualities in different members, and so we complete each other. And now what we are doing is like we want to as I told you, we want to fill in the gap of the contemporary photography scene in Myanmar, and also we want to have a platform ourselves for collective, for Thuma Collective internationally. But our frustration is like when we are meeting with an international curator or festival, and so we got some feedbacks like we don't have Burmese aesthetic, we don't have Myanmar aesthetic, and this kind of things is like so this is the frustration we are having. But I think we are, but I think with my we will try our best. Like we don't care whatever people say.
I was just gonna say that what is a Burmese aesthetic? Like, you know, I mean, is there only one Burmese aesthetic, or Sadia, even for you, like, is there like that one group, you know, like, okay, so you are like 6 women or 5 women, so you are women, and then you are from Burma,
Bangladesh,
and then what does that mean in the dynamics of like development and social structure? And so, I mean, how much are you going to have to represent instead of representing yourself, you know, and who you are as individuals? Sadia, do you want to just...
I think
we don't care to tell more people about that.
I think it became easier for the seller if you have kind of one kind of aesthetic. So then they don't have to question themselves. They don't have to like.
Yeah, they're like, our structures are laid out. Just let them be.
So it's for making things easier, but we are not here to make things easier. Our life is not.
Thank you. It's not the way we've learned to do it. You know? Right. But even for you, Sadia, I mean, you know, the collective is, I mean, although everyone is kind of from this larger unofficial Pachala collective, maybe, but all of you are at different stages of your own practice. You know, you're experimenting with the medium, your interests are going, including other disciplines along with photography, you know. And so how does that work? Because, I mean, what I really liked was what you said was that we're not necessarily, like, our sole focus is not on making constant work, but on being a safe space where we can, and I'm not paraphrasing, so I could be wrong, but where you can make errors and it's okay, you know, like, it's not like this grand project, everything that you do. It's also about experimentation. And I mean, do you want to just talk about that group dynamics?
We are 6 in numbers, including me, and 6 of us have very different aesthetic, very different life experience, and I think that's the common link between us to form this group, to have this diversity of experiences, to have this diversity of knowledge, and so we can debate, we can contradict to ourselves, we can also have the space for failure, and which was not I don't want to offense to anyone, don't think it as an offense, but it was not really happening when we were in Pachala. So I think also because we have we all of us figured it out, and also were talking about it a lot. So we thought, why we can't really take a risk of making it as a group, forming a group, and then working together. Let's say working together, it doesn't have to be like working as a photographer all the time. We can just make teas together, you know, and serve people. We can also yeah. So our interests are also very diverse in nature. Some of us, some of us have interest in plants, some of us interested in um, like socio-political and geographical, this and that. And I mean, so it's more like the hub of meeting, like a hub of all kind of yeah, all kind of activities, all kind of to have this space to share and think, I guess.
And I mean, since you mentioned space, I mean, I just wanted to also talk about how that space might have impacted. Like I know for you and for Thuma, they have the Myanmar data venue, which kind of becomes a good meeting ground where they can do. They've done workshops. I mean, when I met you all, it was over there as well. You know, and I'm assuming for you guys, the spaces are more kind of adaptive in that sense, you know, like, but do you feel it's important to have a concretized venue which kind of does it for you, for both of you actually? It'd be nice for, you know, to hear what both of you have to say. How much of an impact do you think a physical space does for the work of the collective to kind of, you know, I mean, I think more in context of their, I mean, why I'm asking this is, of course, because right now we don't know what a post-COVID world is going to mean, and one is always kind of subconsciously taken the meeting at a particular space for granted. We're now moving into kind of not being physically connected, but maybe being connected by technology. And as we have seen, it doesn't work out all the time. Today was a bit of a confusion as well. So we're adapting to it. You know, but for both of your exercises, in some ways, although the actual act of creating the collaborative work happened over a week, it's, I mean, for me, like, the collaboration actually begins when you both start talking to each other, or you go and have a cup of tea together, or you know, you share someone's work who you saw and you share how you felt about it. Or, I mean, I don't know, even if you've had a dream and it's impacted you in some way, those are the communication channels, I think, that end up actually creating a fraternity of a different nature, you know, which is not medium based. But I just wanted to know, because you've worked in both physical space and non-physical space for, you know, collective and collaborative exercises, how much of an impact do you think space has on this?
For Thuma Collective, I think the space, having a physical space, is kind of like one of our advantage. It's also help us a lot. For example, so when we created a collective, and when we started like exhibitions or our own workshop, like book workshop with Valentina, and so we so it's we don't have call funding, or we don't have other income sources, and so it's so difficult for us to have a space. So collaborating with Myanmar Data is also a kind of like give us like a freedom of artistic choice. So we don't need to worried about the funder who wants the specific walk should look or something like that, and so we can experiment as ourselves. So I think this is one of the our advantage. But now it's like, and also we also meet at our homes. There's also more intimate and more discussion. We can get drunk and more. Yeah, and I think for having a space is helpful to some extent, not as a must, but having a space is also one of the strength for us to grow our artistic activities for Thuma Collective point of view. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, for us as well, I think not having a space like a building or some kind of
Sadia, could you speak a little louder? Just a little bit louder would be nice.
So for us as well, I think not having any like space, a building, I mean a flat or something. It's always a strength, I think, because and so we didn't have to, like work for the funders on their chosen aesthetic and on the
Yeah.
chosen criteria. Only just to like pay for the rent. It's not. I mean, we discussed it about. Discussed within this group, within our group, but it never. Some of the members they said it is quite. Now it is like a needed thing for us to have a space to. I mean, just to like regulate the meeting, to have a regular meeting sessions or workshop if we want to organize. But most of us are not really agreed up on up on this, because then you have to like do things which you don't really want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is always something we're trying to avoid. How do you do this without having to, keep with the intention that you started with? How do you keep that independence of how you feel going without kind of not being taken over by the funders, which is a very important entity, and I think will become even more important now as economies are going to get tougher. But you wanted to say something?
I forgot.
Oh,
No, it's fine.
We'll come back to it. We'll come back to it in the same way that maybe I want to come back to the book. Also, we're going to keep jumping in and out of book and collective and collaboration, because I think they're all kind of very mixed up right now, and each one has an impact on the other. And I mean, I think one more thing I wanted to talk about was in terms of timelines, like again, one is the independence of kind of wanting to do exactly what you have to do. But what happens when you get into a collaborative process? Because that is still to a certain degree a bit of a negotiation between the two people who choose to collaborate, right? Whether it's the two collectives, in Bridging the Naf, or whether it is you and Yuyu, for this particular zine. So, how is it? I mean, I'm quite curious and I'm quite interested to know, how did you move from, great, so you guys came and you were in the same country at the same place together, and then you chose your independent works that you wanted to do, your own curiosity took you to follow different kinds of photographs, and then how do you negotiate these two conversations to become a singular conversation? Who wants to go first? Sadia, you're currently like on the big screen on my desktop, so why don't you start? you're suddenly on the big thumbprint as opposed to the rest. So why don't you start on that?
I think, I mean, the pair up was, we paired up before we went in Myanmar.
Okay.
So me and Yuyu were in the same pair. So we talked. I mean, we discussed when Kaali went to Yangon, but the negotiations were not easy because my work is very. It's quite loud. In compared to Yuyu, and then we also had an exhibition in Myanmar Art Gallery after on the first phase after our work.
Right.
So we made an accordion shape fold together just to see how it looks when we assemble two works together. So it was quite, quite a challenge, really, to see each other works in one, in one book, and then to also to have the individual choice, also to have the individual philosophy to it. I think only the conversation was where the helping point. And since I knew Yuyu before, it helped me a bit to ease up the
Right.
yeah.
You go in softer, right?
Not really quite needed.
Not really. Okay. That's good to know. Right. Yuyu, now would you like to say what happened?
Yeah, for us, it's like, for me, it's like we have two parts in collaboration with Rupa and I. The first part is like the first collaboration that the work we did in Yangon. For me, is that negotiation is quite easier than when we started the book, because we both took the two hats of the photographer and also collective member, as well as we accidentally become the editor of the book.
And the designers, as far as I know, right? So it was not just two hats, there were many hats, and I'm sure there was a lot of like unaccounted for hats, like the person who was running around doing test prints or getting production stuff done, and so it gets to a lot.
So for Myanmar, for Thuma Collective groups, we added together, and then for Kaali Collective, Rupa and the collective member started the editing, and then we both, Rupa and I, we bring the works together to mix. Our design is like to have 6 scenes, so each scene consists of one photographer from Thuma Collective and one photographer from Kaali Collective, and so some of the works really some of the works are difficult to blend in. For example, for example, some works we are not a graphic designer. We accidentally becoming the editor, and also we are the artists ourselves for this book. And at the same time, we have kind of like a funder at the back. And so we try not to make the book not boring for artists, and also not to be too conceptual for the NGO point of view. So we are trying to find the middle ground. And so we try not to use we try not to use a lot of formats. And so each scenes, we only have like a 2 or 3 formats for each box, and some of the works we have to tune in, because for one edit for one artist looks good, but when we combine with 2 artists in a book, we have to tune in a lot. And also, for example, like the work with Shui and Chatu, so they are because the collaboration, the Bridging the Naf is a collaborative work, but it doesn't have to have. We doesn't set the theme, or we doesn't set any theme on that. And so both artists decided to work on the 2 different topics. One walks on the journey of a trans man, and one Shui walks on the a river, Yangon River. And so for us, it's quite difficult to blend in. And so we decided to have like only one format of the layout, and like one line of so no border line, just a line of as like a river, like a journey of a trans man, or like a journey of the river. So so in this way, we have to tune in, and sometimes some of the edits are different from what the respective artists wanted, and so we have to convince our collective member again, and we convince each other. It's like 12 or 14 days to and back. And another thing is like printed limitation in Myanmar. So we at first we decided to do like a red box, but we don't have like we cannot print on the red. We don't have red cardboard. And so we end up like choosing this like natural color cardboard, and But I think it's those limitation makes us walk, because those natural color makes us like the border, the sense of the border. So I think finally it works well for us. Yeah.
I mean, and
We have lots of dummies, like we
yeah,
have.
I'm hoping we're in a better, technology is liking us slightly more, and you all can see my screen right now, because I'm trying to show actually the different processes of zine making and zine building actually that went in. Thank you, Sadia, and thank you guys for sharing these images also with us of how the actual like process and the different stages of zine making and book making happened at this stage. As you can see, in some cases, of course, we have certain design aesthetics that have continued, but in some cases they've changed as well and they've transformed as well. And so it's nice to kind of see that journey come together. And again, it's not just the logistics of what the collective desires, like like you're talking about. There's funding, there is material concerns that one needs to get into, like what is it that one can actually produce in Burma. Like you mentioned that the choice of the brown paper that was there also came as a result of what material was accessible to you. And I think one more thing I want to talk about, so the zines actually come inside this kind of a box. And I think this also, you mentioned that this was also thought about, and both of you had decided on, because this was what was actually possible, to do in Burma without waiting for more errors in that sense.
Yeah.
Am I right on that, Sadia?
Yeah.
And Yuyu, yeah?
Yeah. So in Myanmar, we don't have like a lot of binder and craftsman. And so first, what I have to do is I have to make the dummy of that box. And then I have to teach the guy how to make it.
Right.
and then this way.
It's
So
like
this is the
room
easiest.
where you all could have just been sitting and making like, how many copies did you guys do of this? What was it? 300 or something? Am I right? 300.
300.
Yeah, so you're all just sitting here, everyone's got to stitch their 300 books and like make their boxes, and, but I mean, one more thing actually I did want to talk about in this was the role of text, and I mean more specifically it's almost like a design format that plays out in all of these books. You know how it begins with this, with this text. Let me see now that this computer likes me again. Maybe I can show you the page instead of this. Sorry, 1 second. And then hopefully people who've not been able to see the book, because I know the cameras were also being funny. Just give me 1 second so that I can bring the book out for you guys as well. Okay. Yeah, can everyone see this? Hopefully they can. And so when I say text, I'm talking about this bit that kind of lays the foundation, maybe to a certain degree. Sadia, I don't know how you would put it, but in some ways the text kind of lays the foundation of something that seems very everyday, but at the same time could become extremely bizarre. But this, presence of the text is also there in your, when your segment of the zine begins, Yuyu. And I wanted to talk to you guys about that because it's there in the other books too. So is that something that you guys had very consciously thought about this introduction of the text, or is it something that ended up happening, when you all were looking at your works together during editing sessions or design sessions?
I think we let the author chose their own design in the sense of like which sequence the way they want to sequence it.
Okay.
And then later on, I mean, I think when we needed to really rush on the book, I mean, rush on the design, then we were both of us were suggesting about some, I mean, some options. But mostly for me, as I can, I mean, I can only say about my work. I thought the text is also it's kind of a visual of this day. So it doesn't, for me, it was not really a text
Right.
in a way. And so I thought it required to be in the first pages of my part of the scene. So that's how we. I think that's how I decided my part.
Okay.
But others, like I think Oma and
Tonto?
No, I mean, sorry, I know you're showing, but I did want to say that what you're talking about in terms of the text also is kind of more experiential in nature. It's almost like a short story that runs parallel to another short story. You know, it's like two parallel worlds that are kind of coexisting at the same time. And there is a certain visuality. I mean, I do totally agree with that. In the text itself, it kind of it paints out a fairly cinematic kind of frame for me, you know, both in your cases, because it's a moment that's very experiential. And I mean, I know that it's there in a few others as well, where the text comes in from that same degree of visual experiential kind of presence. You know, it's not there as just a text. That's what I said. I mean, for me, it's more about like a foundation that's laid out in terms of like the mood of what you're going to imagine and feel when you begin to also go through the other pages of the book. And but I mean, so this was something that everyone was on board for, to kind of have this aspect of text come in to the book.
I think we discussed a lot how to, like, you know, go from one page to another, and how your mind also shifts one page to another, and also how you just keep it like this, whether for I mean for reading it like this, or, you know, like, so we had we were not a designer, both of us, and I mean,
Crash course in design.
but I think we kind of sort of understand how should we you know, play with the photographs, and then how to, like, at least for each of our works, how it can be, it cannot, it should not be a catalog of our work. It should be something which reflects our you know, like a collaboration.
And also, like, when we started, before we started the book editing, we have also a few days for the second part of collaboration. And so some artists want to add text or screenshot or something like that. Some artists wants to shoot on. And so for some artists have to add text, and some doesn't have. And so we also treated text like the image in some books, like, for example, Kin spoke, and what's it? I forgot how to pronounce. Sorry. Kin's partner. Kin's partner. Gayatri. Yeah. Kin's walk and Gayatri walks, and Kin's walk has only very short text, but Gayatri trying to use text. So we also treated hard text like an image.
Right.
not to blend the whole book, not to be too separated.
Right. I'm just going to try and probably go to that section so that it can help you all get a sense of, is it Gayatri, no? Kin's work and?
Chutika Deori Guide.
Yes. Thank you, Yuyu. We've got 6 books in front of us, so it takes us a minute to find the right one. But yeah. So, I mean, we're kind of closing in on our conversation time, because I'm sure people have questions as well. And actually, if you do, please, you can write them out in the Q&A section, and we'll kind of take them from here. But I also wanted to know, because I mean, at the end of the day, Bridging the Naf was sequel 1 of this collaboration, and it was very abruptly, I know, and unexpectedly stopped because sorry, when Thuma was actually trying to go to Bangladesh to continue the second part of the collaboration, there were some hurdles, and they were not able to get a visa. And so the second bit remains to be completed. But now that you've kind of worked on this book form already, you've worked on this zine with conversations going on, do you guys have any ideas on how you would like to continue that collaboration? You know, I mean, would it be another book? Would it be something that's completely different? Have you guys spoken about it at all? You know, just share some bits on that.
For us, it's like we are very happy of the final result of the Bridging the Naf, but we always feel like it's uncompleted for us. Like we really wanted to go to Bangladesh, experience, and we have, and also it's like we really cannot accept the reason of like our visa were denied for no apparent reason, just because we are photographer, we are from Myanmar, and so we want to. As a collaboration, we want to complete this mission to come to Bangladesh and to experience and to meet all the Kaali sisters in person. That's one of our desires so far. But I also think that not just after meeting with each other, we some individuals members can also start some individual collaboration. For example, like I and Farzana, we talk about something to work together in the future. So not just the group, also members to member, we also have friendship and trust. And then I think this kind of individual collaboration will also happen. Yeah.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
I think when their visas were denied, it was so disheartening for us to accept it. And then the book was never planned. So we wanted to restore our conversation at that period of time, and our arguments as well, to weave together in these books, in these zines. I think, of course, if there is any collaboration in future happen between Kaali and it would be really wonderful to do. But I think individual collaboration is, always great, and we are always in contact to each other. And then,
I mean, I also think it's very, very interesting at this point to, because I realize that maybe some of you are not aware of this. The end of the collaboration was it was never made or thought of as a book, right? That ended up happening as a result of
not being able to
as a result so I think that's very interesting how it was actually meant to be an exhibition in Dhaka, if I'm not wrong. Is that?
So we just exhibited the book at Patshat.
Yeah. No, I mean, initially it was supposed to be when Thuma was going to come, it was supposed to be an exhibition. and then Thuma was not able to make it. So what came out instead are 6, what I would like to say, portable exhibitions that can now be seen, of course, at Pathshala or in Dhaka, in my house here in New Delhi, and everywhere else this book ends up traveling. And I think Danita had said that, where the book actually becomes the work and it gets to travel, so it's its own exhibit, in some forms. And I think it's been very interesting to have this exhibition at the Offset Library, and to be able to sneak it into my house during this lockdown for our conversation today. And I do hope that what you guys have actually set out to do, which is, it's been amazing to see that degree of honesty and experimentation that's come up. It's not like, oh, so now the second part of this collaboration is not happening, so we wait till it happens. You just, okay, let's do something. Let's make a book. We can make it travel. And because of that, today it's a possible exhibit in many places. And thank you for the, actually, let me just see if we have some questions. Otherwise, we can continue talking a little bit more, maybe. And yeah, I think we don't have, yeah, for now we're good. But I think it might be even, I mean, since we have a little bit more time, to talk about how the act of how the collectives have had an impact on your own practices. I'd like to kind of maybe have a little bit more of a conversation on the collectives and how, because of course when you started out, I think Thuma was 3 years, 4 years now? 3 years.
2017, so 3 years.
3 years,
Yep.
right? And Kaali, I'm not aware when officially became a collective.
18.
Okay. So you've had enough time to kind of, and your practices were very different. I mean, Sadia, you were talking about it, that actually there are some people now in the collective who, let's say, are more interested in, let's say, video, or someone else is interested in a different medium. And then because of the constant conversation that exists within the collective, you're also able to expand your own horizons to a large degree. And I mean, it would be nice to know how the collective has impacted the individual.
For me, as I was always interested to make in filmmaking, so for me it's more like a setup of films where all our crews and our main goal is to make the film. So I think I became more disciplined in a way to, if it's about our collective. In my, individual work, I'm not really disciplined at all. So, but it is helping me in other ways as well. Like when I need someone to, share my thoughts about, any kind of experiments, any kind of experiment I want to do, so I can share it to Kaali, and then also they question a lot. So which really helped me to also to think, which I didn't really which I actually do as a alone practitioner. So I think that is really a very important point for me to be a member of this group.
And it's really nice that you spoke about this, because I think what ends up happening with a lot of practicing, not just photographers, but also when other mediums as well, is that because the medium can be fairly isolatory. And so very often you're having a conversation with yourself, which is great, but sometimes you need someone from the outside to kind of intervene and push it to a different tangent even, or there's maybe just an emotional block or a work block that you're having at some point, and you're not even able to identify it. and to have this kind of a safe space where you can say, I really don't know what the hell is going on in my mind or my work, and know that it's okay to kind of put it out there and have the other one be like, why not? I mean, this is what we need to then talk about, or this is what we need to look at, or I mean, I don't know, it could be something as random as just saying, okay, every day when you wake up in the morning, you create a ritual for yourself. And I mean, I feel like these conversations within collectives are almost like that. They're almost like rituals of belonging in some ways, of just having that world that is you're secure around, to then just go out and do something new.
Yeah.
I mean, Yuyu, I know even for you it was, I mean, we spoke about that experience, a couple of experiences I know, and I mean, one, of course, when you realized as a photojournalist that you were shooting stuff that the men around you were just not able to understand, and they were just like, what is going on with this? Why this? Or even, when you had a pretty big workshop and you had your mentor, for the workshop at least, tell you that I think this is indulgent, and I mean, that kind of, it stayed with me about like, this is just female indulgence. You don't need to get so emotional about it, and why not? Like, so I just wanted to know how that's personally, like, in your own practice, whether it's photography, whether it's, I don't know, gardening, cooking, anything, like as an individual, how that idea of the collective is actually, has it helped, or maybe, whatever it's done in that sense.
For us, it's like the platform for the woman photographer is very limited, and so having collective itself is also a platform.
Right.
So by having each other, we can also grow each other. For example, I'm very bad with words, and so for example, if for writing a short test, it takes me a long time, and so I have to get a consultation from Tim, who is a very good writer. And also when we stuck in the writing proposal or something, Shui helps us out, and so this way we kind of like growing together. And also like when we have like, not only just for photography, for example, when we have an emotional background breakdown, like personal family stuff, we always have each other. That's very rare, especially in this industry. We can openly share our work and we can openly share our feeling. That's I think very precious.
Definitely. In fact, I just had a flashback. The first time you and I met was at Angkor Festival, and Ying at that time, Ying Yang had done this session where she just wanted photographers to come together and kind of huddle up and just talk about where they were currently facing a creative block. Like, that was just it. Like, and she just kind of put it out there very casually, saying, hey, so if anyone's free in the afternoon, I just thought we can all sit and, for those of you who want to, maybe we can just get together, show some of our work and say, where we're kind of feeling a creative block. And no one thought much of it. I think everyone thought like, okay, some 2-3 photographers are going to like kind of, take over a table. And suddenly we were like a room full of what? I mean, I think 20-30 photographers, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah.
And you had a book at that time too. You made this tiny book of portraits of women's portraits, I think.
Yeah.
And that experience has stayed with me, even today, where, I mean, that happened, I don't know, like a decade ago, maybe. and even today, I have that same feeling, because I feel like suddenly, like, you have no hesitation in kind of talking about things that you're not sure of. Because I think in that process of talking, very often you find yourself even more, find your own standing even more, and so it's so good to actually see more safe spaces come up, and then those safe spaces, interact with each other, and hopefully.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, as a collective, it was also very important for us to to exist in this like aggressive peer fraternity.
Yeah.
So it was I'm not against peer fraternity. It's also I mean it's needed to make a collective as well.
Right.
But I don't agree with the aggression. It spreads around others, you know.
Right.
So for us to even exist, it's kind of a protest to to this mainstream flattery, arse licking, yeah, groups, large groups.
Our little revolt.
Yeah.
Quite one, Mariam. Yes. And I mean, and clearly, like it has had an impact, and hopefully we'll see more manifestations of that impact, in more tangible forms that we can also hold. And I mean, actually, I don't know. Maybe we won't have tangible forms anymore, and that's a different chaos to deal with right now. But I mean, I hope that that these conversations do continue, and I know there are a couple of questions which I'm just going to ask you very quickly. So Alicia actually wanted to know, what were some unexpected responses you received for the book? Were there any unexpected responses?
For us, there were many.
Okay.
Because
Go for it.
because we sent, I mean, we gave it to many people we know in Bangladesh, and then we didn't really got any response after that, any feedback. Not so because we asked for feedback whether
Right.
whether it works or not, and then we also had an event to show our books, but only like 10 or 20 people. I think 15 people came. So it was quite like enlightening.
But you guys also showed this book at Dhaka Summit, right? Am I?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Later on this year.
Right. Time is just a construct, right?
So I think we also, I mean, as a group, as a collective, we also understand that there will be a lot of restriction. There will be a lot of dismissal in a way, but we are not really, like, we don't feel weak for not having more people, more audience.
And Alicia has one more question. After the book was printed and ready, did something new become visible which you hadn't seen while it was being made?
Yes, I think for us, because all of the Kaalis only can work for 5 days in Myanmar. So we always thought of like, I mean, it's kind of half the way we wanted to, like, we just managed the half part of the conversation we wanted to do. So there are many pictures we wanted to, I mean, include in these books, but it was not possible at that time. So I think Thuma and Kaali will make a second edition.
Yeah. The question is, are you going to make it in Burma or Bangladesh?
Yes.
Gayatri has actually a really important question, I think. How do you keep the collective energy going? How do you keep the collective energy going and deal with individual accountability? Sorry.
For me personally, collective energy is like it's always up and down, because we always with different people and different energy for photography. and different perspective in life and different backgrounds. So sometimes our energy is really driven, and sometimes we are really down. But we have to accept it, because it's by accepting this is kind of like holding the collective together. For example, like if some members will have a very busy schedule, but some members want to do a, like maybe started a photo festival or something like that, but we have to find a common ground and common interest to common level to each other. So as a collective, I think we have always have like up and down moment. Sometimes we take a break not to have a meeting frequently. Sometimes we have a meeting together, and so we have to balance it. So otherwise, I think the collective energy will be broken. But I think so that we have to balance it. Yeah, because I have to tell myself these days. Sometimes it's really driven as like the commitment and everything is like sucking your energy and time, and so we actually have to balance it.
That's
and I think for us it's talking a lot, and then also being very sensible to each other, not repeating the same power structure we criticize. So so it's a lot of self questioning and also collective questioning together. We have to do it.
I mean, do you guys feel, just as an offshoot from Gayatri's question, do you guys feel that the act of kind of functioning as a collective is also maybe in some ways slowed you down? But I mean it in like a nice way, where you're, because otherwise we're so driven on decision making, and like as individuals, I can just be like, I want to do this in the next week, right? But it doesn't maybe sometimes allow the same degree of interrogation, within why I want to do something or how I want to do it, and therefore maybe even breaking it down for myself ethically, ideologically, and a whole bunch of other parameters, But I feel like when you're in a collective, like there is always that process. It's much slower because no decisions can be made with the same kind of speed and urgency. But it might have, for me, it's kind of really nice to know that, because I feel like when you arrive at that, whatever decision you do take, it's something that you've kind of gone back and forth on and had a conversation about? Or is this just me romanticizing how the collective works?
I think for me, it's really, it slowed me down in some aspect. Because for my own work, I can just, whenever I feel like I will, show it this way and that way, I will start shooting, and so I can make my own plans. But for collective, it's always difficult to have a common agreed like moment, and then you can be totally failed, and then you have to also accept that. So it slowed me down in many aspects, but I don't think it's a blockade for me. I can because we have, it's very flexible. I can do my own work, and whenever I feel I can do long-term like slow-paced work with my group, with my collective. Then we discuss about that. So that's how I think we work.
For us, is actually what you said is right, and it really slows down, and sometimes we are really frustrated. For example, we cannot agree to some point, and also sometimes to have, like, for example, let's say to involve in a project, and so not everybody at first. Our practice is like everybody votes. If we have like the 100% vote, we pass. but but it's sometimes it doesn't work because we have different people, and so later we discuss each other, like maybe this project, this member are really busy, we cannot do it, and maybe this two members can proceed, and this way we don't pull out other people's slack, and also we don't push other people's slack. And so this way we decided to do, if somebody wants to do something which doesn't affect the Thuma value, so we proceed. And so before that is quite slowing us down, and very we have like a tension, but later we set up that the kind of new rule, if someone at least 2 or 3 members from the collective can continue without just affecting the Thuma's value, we continue. So, and also it also helped us, like as a photographer, we are very difficult to work as a team. So by being in a collective, and so it also help us the teamwork practice better than before. That's yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I have maybe one question to kind of wrap this up, but we can let it continue. Like the answer can go on for as long as you'd like. I mean, I was just trying to figure out how you guys are then managing the existence of this collective at a time like right now. Like, is this a question that you've had to kind of acknowledge, or has there been a conversation about this even among yourselves? Because it seems, I mean, I don't know the exact degree of intensity of the lockdown for Burma and Bangladesh. I know that for you, mobility is not maybe as tough, but within restricted regions.
So,
and Sadia, you'd mentioned that the lockdown is pretty stringent, but there are loopholes around it in some ways. But what does it mean to then, have a collective or an entity that actually has had a ritual of meeting fairly regularly? Even, I mean, I know you guys, you meet a fair bit, even though you mentioned that there are phases, but I know the place you go to for your dinners. Thank you for taking me there. But, so I was thinking about it while we were prepping for the talk. But I mean, these kind of rituals create a different sense of solidarity, and it's the presence of knowing that you can always count on physical intimacy with these women around you. They're also kind of, maybe, I mean, I'm assuming, and I could be very wrong, gives one a strength to kind of go, the extra way, or experiment a little bit more, maybe, within a certain collective practice. So, I mean, is this a concern for you guys right now, to think about what the pandemic could mean for a collective, or is it not? You figure it out.
I think for us, we pro-corona, it was really hardship to meet in 1 month together in a temporary place, or but now we are very regular in the virtual apps, so we meet twice in a week. We talk about daily things, whatever ideas came up.
Right.
So I think during this lockdown, we survived because we had this collective. So together we can talk a lot shit, and also because we all are kind of financially are struggling. So it's more, we are also dependent psychologically to each other. So there is psychological dependence. So for us, I think the lockdown made this conversation, made this meetup places a bit, kind of a regular process for us now to talk about anything, and then whenever possible. I don't know, like after this lockdown, how it
The world is going to be.
how the world is going to be and how the collective will function again. But I think the time we had together in Myanmar for the 8 days were a huge, it's more like more like we put a mirror in front of us. So on that eight night and days, we understand how this collective can function. So I think we have our trust together, and then let's see after Corona how we.
For us, it's quite different because I think most of our collective members were affected by Corona. Like the work, some of our work were cut for this our payment or something like that. We are in a very down moment, some of us, and so we trying to take a break. We don't talk about work or we don't talk about photography collectively these days. Trying to have a break and to be healthy for emotionally, mentally, and physically ourselves. But we, some of our members like me, Shui, and Kim, we live in a compound, just 2 minutes walk, and so sometimes we have dinner together. And sometimes we have a chat or something like that, but we don't really not very much discuss about walks, how to proceed, and so we try to take it as it's like an energy filling time or
really nice. I mean, because it's nice to know that it's actually a collective in the sense of actually being collected. No matter, it's not like, hey, if you want to talk about photography, I'm here, but otherwise count me out. That I think that's really, really nice and special. And both of you seem to have extremely special safe spaces. Thankfully around you, and hopefully that's going to grow, and these conversations are going to grow, and we've got our fingers crossed for a possible conversation. So let's see what 2021 can bring in store for us. Thank you so much, despite the insane amount of glitches that happened with us today. I think we collectively fought through this time, so it was good. But just to let you guys know, unfortunately and unfortunately, I guess at the same time, the book, I'm going to do this because I just had it splattered everywhere on my table. The book was actually created, the production of it was created thanks to funding by I think Myanmar Data and the Norwegian People's
Aid.
And People's Aid. And so because of that, the books are not for sale. But if you want to know how you can access them, I don't even know if you guys have any more copies or not. We'll leave you guys an email ID. Maybe Sadia and you guys can leave your email IDs, because I'm sure even later people will have like that thought that comes to you later and you're like, damn it, I wish I'd asked it. So maybe they can spam you on that now.
We accept, as we cannot sell the book, we accept like book swap. For example, if you want this, we can swap with your book, with your photo book.
So everyone who's on this, make your book and swap it with these guys instead of just getting a pre-bought book. But yeah, I think that's a beautiful idea that you can do a book swap instead of having to buy it. And but I know that Thuma has another book that is available for sale, as far as I know, right? Us and Beyond is available for sale, right?
Yeah.
Which will be on their website. On how?
We on our Instagram.
Write to Yuyu, and she will be able to give you some more information about the other book. And thank you all for bearing with this chaotic beginning, but hopefully a happy ending to this conversation. And we're going to move into week 2 from day after. where we're going to actually have our first conversation with Vijay Villafranca, who you guys know as well. And Vijay is a photojournalist from Indonesia. So a very different aesthetic. He's got this book called Signos, which we're going to talk about, and his photojournalistic practice mixed with his entire journey in photography, which is going to be quite exciting. Thank you. And I'm going to record, I'm going to put up a recording of this video. Give us a day and we will figure out the logistics. Hopefully we had all bits of the recording and not when I came on. But what's meant to be will be. That's where I will leave it at, you know. And thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great Sunday evening and a nice meal to wrap up your week. And you're able to keep count of the week because we had this conversation with Yuyu where she was like, is it not today or is it tomorrow? And then I went into the zone and I was like, is it today or is it tomorrow? We're all losing track of time. So yes, please keep a calendar somewhere close by or a watch somewhere close by. Don't lose track of reality. And yeah, be safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anj. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a big fan, I think, over here. I'm going to just end with that. The only name I can see is Khoon Bhari Maang, so I don't know who this person is. But they're very insistent that we should not stop talking, and they ask you, how do Thuma and Kaali deal with their fans? Go for it. Guys.
You don't have any plans.
Well, you really have one here. You know?
Please.
But yes. Alicia, well, you have a few fans already. Alicia's already, everyone's announcing their fandom to you.
We are also your fan, Alicia.
I think we need a fan page for Thuma and Kaali. Yes, we should organize that. And let's continue these conversations as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Good night.